What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Wednesday night Chucky live stream. As usual, you've got me, you've got Charles, and then we have a very special guest with us tonight, which is Ben, the president, founder, the man at Fright Rags, and he's showing off some Fright Rags right there on him. So those of you guys have watched me for a while, I've always gotten a lot of comments complimenting and inquiring about where I get a lot of my t-shirts, and 95% of them are from Fright Rags. Ben's a huge horror fan. I follow him on Twitter. He does a lot of live tweets for old classic horror films, so I thought it'd be fun to have him on. Ben, I appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem. So if you don't mind, for those of us that might be watching that are unfamiliar with Fright Rags, if you don't mind kind of giving us some info on what the company is, how you got it started, and what kind of drove your passions to create Fright Rags.
Sure. So Fright Rags, we specialize in horror apparel and accessories. So primarily t-shirts, but we do tons of other things like socks and hats and lounge pants and lots of other things too. We've done lunch boxes, we've done action figures, activity books. So it's a myriad of things, but it's mostly related to horror. We do branch out, as you can see on the screen there. We do Back to the Future, and we've done Highlander, and so there's a bit of a pop culture element there too, but it's probably 98% horror. And really it started because, well, in theory, it started on October 30th, 1981. When I was 4, I saw Halloween for the first time, and that was the network TV premiere. Little did I know, I was just a kid. I was literally 4, and we were at a friend's house, and I was bored, and I was wanting to go home. My mom was like, just go watch TV. Like, basically, get out of my way. We're
classic babysitter.
It's classic 80s parent, right? Like, so I literally sat in front of the TV and this movie came on, and I had never, I was 4. I was used to, Scooby-Doo and Popeye or whatever. So I had never seen anything like that. So that started my lifelong passion for horror. As I grew up in the 80s, with home video, we got a VCR pretty early on. So, of course, we had Beta, because Rochester, where I live, Rochester, New York, was like a testing ground for Beta and VHS. We ended up going with Beta, but we transitioned to VHS later on. But I would rent movies all the time, and I would get my friends into it and stuff. So I've always been a horror fan for pretty much as long as I can remember. And as far as how Fright Rags got started, I was into graphic design. That's what I went to school for. And after I got out of school, I was working for a laptop bag company here in Rochester. And it was great, because it was like I was the third person hired. So I was doing all the product photography, but I was doing the website stuff. I was doing print collateral, all these things. So it was neat to have like my hands in all these different things in the ground level of a company. But it was interesting, but at the same time, I had a lot of creativity built up that I wanted to express. And during the time, now this is going back to 2003, so this is pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook, pre-MySpace. I know that I was on a lot of message boards with horror fans, and I would just hang out and talk with people because I was a fan, and I talked to other fans, and we talk about Halloween franchise, we talk about Chucky, we talk about all these things. And a lot of the forums I like to be on were people that made fan-made stuff, like Freddy gloves or Jason masks. Because the first thing I did, first time I ever got on the internet in 1995, 96, I was in college then, I typed in Michael Myers, or I typed in Don Post Kirk mask, you know what I mean? Like, because I wanted one, right? So I found a guy named Justin Mabry. I don't know if you know who he is, but he went on to start Trick or Treat Studios. So he had a forum called Night Owl Productions at the time. Again, this is going back almost 20 years. And we became really good friends, and we would talk for hours over the phone. And I just had these ideas, these designs that I thought would be pretty cool, and I thought they would look good on a shirt. And the first one that I came up with was What Would Jason Do? And it was a play off of What Would Jesus Do? Because that was kind of a big thing at the time. And I just wanted to do something creative. So I just had this idea. I've always liked quirky t-shirts. I've never really owned horror t-shirts before. And I looked at what was available, and there wasn't anything out there that spoke to me. And then when I came up with that idea, I didn't see anybody had done it before. I scoured Google and things. So I thought that would be kind of cool. and it's a WW and it had a hockey mask and then D, right?
I own that shirt.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Well, and I had a couple other ideas of just doing a big hockey mask and then doing a Michael Myers looking one that just says trick or treat on it. So anyway, Justin had a really, a decent following. He made the best Michael Myers masks and everything. So he's like, you should post that on my forum. And I thought that would be cool. So I did, and I just got a lot of great feedback, and people were like, oh, I would totally buy that as a shirt or whatever. And I thought, I've never started a business. I've never been in business, I thought, well, I can put a website together. I know how to do that from being in school and stuff. And I just need a name. And I was coming up with ideas like Fright Rags, I guess. It's scary and t-shirts cool, I bought a domain name, and then I went to order the t-shirts online, and it was like $600 of money I did not have. It was my credit card, and my fiance at the time was like, what the hell are you doing? We're trying to plan for a wedding. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just gonna buy some shirts.
I'm doing important things.
We're wearing t-shirts at the wedding.
Yeah, and it was a lot of money, and it was scary because I didn't know literally what the hell I was doing. I was going based on these people saying they would buy it. So it was around Labor Day weekend of 2003, in September 2003. And then I just popped up the website and got my first few orders. And I just thought, this is fun, and I'm just going to keep doing it. And then I was able to find a local screen printer that was right around the corner from my work. So I would go to his house. He did it out of his garage at the time, and pick up shirts. And it was just fun to have a connection when there were so many times, especially after I got married and got a house, and as you get more responsibilities, and I thought, I should just hang this up. It's been like 3 weeks without an order. What am I doing? I should grow up or, move on. And then an order would come in. It would be just somebody randomly sending me money for something that I made. And I thought, that's awesome. Maybe I should just keep working at it. And then I really just kept going, and it built over time. And by 2008, I was able to quit my full-time job, and I hired my first employee, and then it just started building, and then we started getting licensing, and then it just snowballed, and now we're 8 employees. I've been doing this full time since 2008, and yeah, it's awesome. We're in an old morgue in downtown Rochester,
That is cool.
Yeah, so I would say the rest is history, but it took a long time to build, but because of that, we have built an audience, and I believe a very strong base, because we love connecting with customers, the people that are like us. They're fans. We are fans. We are connecting over fandom,
Oh yeah.
That's preeminent over anything. And just to be able to make products based on those types of things and then connect with them in that way is awesome.
Oh yeah. You're speaking my language, man. That's the reason why I love doing this. Film criticism, call it, it is what it is, but just making videos, making content, joking around, like doing the little intros and stuff that I try to do, doing streams like this, and just connecting with people over movies. That's what makes it all worth it. It's just, it's fun to connect with people in Switzerland and Australia, like places you've never even came anywhere close to, over a movie that came out 40 years ago. So
from your own room, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right there. It's amazing. And now, like you said, with these days of social media and all these other things, and the ways we can connect, it's incredible.
Yeah, the world's so small now, thanks to the internet.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, dude, I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. So if anybody that wants to check out Fright Rags, I've got the link down below, or you can just do fright-rags.com, or you can just Google it. They should be the first one that pops up. But there's especially if you're a Halloween fan, like Ben showing off, they've got a ton of reprints and stuff for the Halloween season right now. And even Chucky fans, there's some reprints, and they got one awesome design that I believe is sold out at the moment. Are there going to be more of those, or? Yeah,
I'll tell you, just if you don't mind, a quick story about that. So that design that we just put out, like you said, we hadn't really planned too much on, because we have the Chucky license, but it's not technically the show, it's the movies, right? It's the franchise. And we hadn't really planned too much around the franchise in terms of what we were going to do with Chucky for the TV show. But Devin Sawa actually contacted us, and he needed shirts for the cast and crew. And he really liked that design that we had done several years ago. And we're like, let's just print up a bunch and release it the same day as the show comes out. I think that would be fun. And so we got him his shirts for the cast and crew, and we released them, and then they did sell out, but he needed some more anyway, so we're reprinting them. So they will be back. They will be available, and I don't know when, probably in a few weeks.
That's awesome.
Very, very cool. And your story with Halloween too kind of rings true for me because it's a very similar story with how I got into horror, but it was this little guy right here. It was Child's Play 3. My dad was watching it in the living room, and I came in, and I think I was 4 years old. I was really young too, and I was like, "What is this with the molten plastic?" Like, that was the first time I'd seen anything like it, and for some reason, it just clicked. I was never a kid that was scared or had to be told that it wasn't real or anything, and from then I was just like Chucky and Freddy all day. I had the original 1978 Halloween on VHS too. That was always my favorite. So it's funny how similar our kind of birth into horror fandom is.
I love it. I actually saw Child's Play 3 in the theater, and I still have my little trading card, I think.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
There used to be, when I grew up in Ohio, I'm in Georgia now, there was a bar that, a little bar and grill that I went to a couple times with my parents. And in the back above their pool table, they had like one of those dome lights, and it was a doll of Chucky like falling like at the end of Child's Play 3. And I used to always go and just hang out by that every time we went. So before we dive into episode 2, give me a quick little intro into your fandom and Chucky, if you've always been a fan, and what you thought of episode 1, and then we'll kind of dive into what we're here to talk about.
It's funny. My first intro to Chucky is interesting because it's like back in 1988, right, when it came out. Was it 88? It was 88, right? I'm trying to
around there. Yeah,
I think it was 88.
I remember seeing that the trailers on TV, and basically that was the first time they started doing audience reactions. At least in my knowledge, they used audience reactions in the TV commercials for it, like people coming out of the theater going, "That's the scariest thing I ever saw." So when it came out on video, it was right around the time, one of the two, it was either that or Hellraiser was like the first weekend it came out. I thought it was Child's Play, but anyway, my buddy and I, like, we jumped out of my mom's car before it even stopped so we could run into the video store and make Hellraiser and Child's Play. And so we were like 11.
Very different movies.
Yes. I was going to say what we ended up doing was we wanted to watch Hellraiser first because we thought Child's Play was going to be the like scariest thing we'd ever seen. And my mom at the time, my parents were very lenient with me. I was the youngest of 4, and they let me watch a lot of the stuff. And my mom was like, "I want to see what you're into. Like, I want to watch this Hellraiser movie with you." Well, you're 11, watching Hellraiser with your mother. You already know where that went. Mm-hmm. And that just blew our minds. So unfortunately, we get to Child's Play, and I loved Child's Play, but I'm reeling from Hellraiser and what I just witnessed. It was a little like we should have just swapped them and watched Hellraiser last. But I will say Child's Play I always loved, and then Child's Play 2 came out, which I loved, and then I saw 3 in the theater. And 3, at that point in the franchise, you're sort of like, okay, what are they doing? It just, for me, it felt like it started just like around the time for any franchise, Halloween, Friday the 13th, you start kind of playing it out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, it did make me not want to see Bride when it came out as much. I was a little late to that party, but when I saw it, I was like, this is awesome. So I've always really appreciated Chucky. And then when Curse and Cult came out, I really loved what Don Mancini did in terms of reviving the franchise and bringing everything together. I thought that was super duper smart. And then I was curious about the TV show, and I'm telling you, I watched that last week. I'm like, I honestly think this is one of the best things of Chucky ever. I really think they hit this perfect tone with the character and then bring it into a modern day and still keeping it fresh.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I had a lot of reservations walking into the TV show because while I love pretty much the first 4 movies, I'm even a huge fan of 3. A lot of it's nostalgia because that was my intro, but I love the first 4 movies to death. I was not a fan of Seed. A lot of people weren't, but it just didn't quite work for me. Curse kind of brought me back. I was like, oh, this is like old school Chucky. I loved it. Cult I had a lot of problems with. And so I wasn't sure. I'm like, Don Mancini's a very passionate guy. This is his franchise. He's going to do what he wants. Totally respect him for that. But I don't know if what he's going to do is going to be on my wavelength or not. And I wasn't sure with this TV show what we were going to get as far as quality as well as the rating. I wasn't savvy that, after 10 p.m. they can cuss as much as they want. They can have as much blood. So I was like, do I want a TV show of Chucky? Oh, I don't know. And I loved the first episode. And I'm going to tell you, I watched last night's episode and I loved it even more. So I hope I'm not going to get my heart broke somewhere in this season. But as a Chucky fan, I'm extremely impressed with what they've done so far. And I'm with you. I think that since the 90s, this might be the smartest thing that they've done which was not my expectation. And I know CP had a couple of issues with the last episode, but we were talking beforehand last night, and he was much more positive on this episode as well. So I think that no matter what color or no matter what spectrum of Chucky fan you are, I think that there's going to be something in this TV series that's going to speak to you, and that's really cool. So as far as episode 2, we start to dive a lot more into the relationship between Jake and Chucky and how that's going to develop, because the first episode, you pretty much kind of get those familiar Child's Play vibes. Like, okay, he's going to torment this kid. He's going to, utilize him for whatever he needs. But they're actually starting to develop somewhat of a friendship between them. Like, it's a hesitant friendship. Jake's like, I don't know about this guy. I think you're a killer, but I might like that. I don't know. And I really like the way that they're doing that, because I don't know if Jake's eventually going to be complicit in this, if he's eventually going to be part of, the cult of Chucky, or by the end of it, he's going to try to stop him. But this episode was very much about Chucky kind of grooming Jake, saying like, look at all these things that these people are doing to you. They're not your real friend. I'm your friend to the end. And I really enjoy what they're doing with those two characters. CP, how did you feel about how they developed from the first episode, that friendship between Jake and Chucky?
Oh, you put it perfectly. The one thing that I was worried about was they put so much in that first episode. I thought they wouldn't have, because it's a TV series. So you have 10 episodes. So what are you going to do 5 episodes down the road if you're front loading all of this stuff? But so far, so good. The way they drew out the relationship was fantastic. And again, as the guy who looks at technical stuff, the way it was lit and the gray, it was the tone was right on with what they were trying to put across in this episode, and it really felt dark, really dark and sinister, and it wasn't, it's not like Chucky wasn't still funny, but like what was going on, he was, like you said, he was grooming this kid. But the way that the film was telling you with visuals was, bad shit's happening. And I love the fact that is she the Lexi, is she the cousin's girlfriend?
Yes.
Yeah. I love the fact that they're Yeah, they're basically setting her up to be like she's the villain. Like she's a C word, if I may.
Yeah, we get to a certain point in the episode where she really shows how nefarious she is, and I'm gonna tell you, it takes a lot.
Actually, I was like, damn.
It takes a lot to shock me. My jaw literally opened. I was like, because the whole episode you're thinking it's gonna be some sexy thing and all that. She's like, oh, it's gonna be hot, don't worry. And then she shows what it actually is, and I was like, she needs to die now, violently on screen. And it's like, for being middle schoolers, you're basically wishing death upon a 14-year-old. But I was like, don't care, she deserves it. Ben, what do you think about how they're developing the relationship between Jake and Chucky thus far?
I love it. Like CP said, I think, one of the things, going back to like the technical aspect, I love how, like you said, it was so well lit and so well, I don't know how to say this, clearly defined. Everything it feels so modern, but the tone of everything is so mean spirited in the best possible way. Even the fact that like there is a lot of swearing, and like Lexi swearing at her parents, which I thought was very interesting. I love the fact that it just doesn't pull any punches. You just assume that this is like a WB production or something, And yet it's totally not. But yet it looks and feels almost like it could be one of those things. So anyway,
it has its moments. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So the Chucky and Jake relationship, I love the fact that Chucky is kind of standing up for Jake in the end of the first episode, where he's doing the ventriloquist type of thing. I love that he's like, I'm basically standing up for you, and like you said, it might be for a nefarious reason. I mean, he wants Jake to kill, and we don't really know Chucky's maybe ulterior motives, it seems like. I mean, again, with the first movie, if you will, he wanted to get out of that doll, you know what I mean? And I know in subsequent movies he's sort of become him, and he's not trying to get out. but you wonder, like, what is his intention exactly? Like, where is this going? I know he wants Jake to kill, but it's sort of like, and why didn't he tell Jake that he killed the housekeeper, right? Like, he's keeping things from him, but yet he wants to be his friend. And I love the almost playfulness of it. Like, oh, I'll never do that again. I promise. You're my friend to the end. He's really playing the friend to the end bit, which I thought is genius. And so it leaves Jake asking questions. It leaves us not knowing really what Chucky really wants. I love that we're still wondering. Like, I thought, and I could be wrong, you can correct me, I thought there was some scenes at the end of the first episode that show a little bit more of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And I thought that it would be the cousin, Lexi, and Jake and Devin, right? Teaming up to fight Chucky.
Same.
Which may still happen, but this episode, Lexi's still crazy. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen anytime soon because she played his dead dad. Like that, I was like, oh no, she's total bitch in this. You know what I mean? And very well acted, mind you, because I think she is playing this part so well that, like you said, you're wishing death on a teenage or a middle schooler. And I'm like, I mean, she's pretty much my daughter's age, and I'm going, kill her. You know what I mean?
Do it slow.
Why would I ever say that? But the fact, I mean, when she pulled out that outfit, I was like, oh my God, that is insane. So I love that. Yeah, that and the fact that the woman that he gave the apple to described Chucky. So now we've got this other thing starting to play out. So, but yeah, the relationship I think is great because we just don't know what it is yet, and I think that's awesome.
Do you guys think? I mean, with the little tidbits they keep showing us of Charles Lee Ray's past, do you think that there might be this parallel where he was an only child and he can relate so much to this Jake character, and that's why he like, I don't know, bonds with him and perhaps he understands what he's going through and like genuinely wants to be his friend?
I actually like that idea. I never thought about that.
I think there's going to be some color to that because speaking on a little bit of what Ben said, you're starting to see a very different shade of Chucky here, which we've never seen before. I mean, he has never shown any bit of sympathy, and even in Seed, when it's literally about his family, he's just like, whatever, like he's just doing Chucky things. But there's moments in this episode where he's actually talking to him almost like a father figure. Like, hey, like when he brought up Glenn and Glenda, like my eyes got this big. I was like, oh God, it's happening. But he was like, I have a gender fluid kid. And then he's like, you were cool with that? I'm not a monster, Jake. Like there's moments like that where I'm like, they're actually making Chucky human and it's working. This is weird. Like it was so nuts. But yeah, I think with the flashbacks, it's either going to attribute something to where you're going to see something in his past that makes him have a connection with Jake, or they're going to show something that gives a connection to somebody else in this town to give him reason why he's there. Because by the end of Cult, we know that there's multiple dolls. Curse obviously was them taking one of those dolls and getting revenge on Nika's mother. And so who knows how many of these dolls are out in the world doing, Chucky's bidding to where, okay, this person screwed me over in 94. So we're going to send the Chucky doll to his neighborhood. And this person did this in the drive-through line at McDonald's. So we're going to send them there. It might be that simple, but I'm very curious to find out regardless. We got a couple super chats. Cody, you forgot to mention in your episode 2 review about how Chucky mentioned the existence of Glenn Glenda. Well, right there, as soon as he started talking, he's like, yeah, I was like, oh. So I'm morbidly curious to see if they're going to bring him into the show. Well, I bet it would be Glenn, him and her, because they're two different people now. We'll see. Hulk Smash Yo Mom. That's still my favorite username. Love the show already. Chucky looks amazing. I totally agree. And I think we have one more. Willmeister, did any of you catch that slight look Lexi gave Jake as she was mocking his father? I don't think it's remorse, but it was something. I think it was like a gotcha bitch look.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, he scared her with the doll. She doesn't know that the doll's alive, so she thinks that he's getting the better of her. And that was kind of her way of reasserting dominance. I think.
I read disdain, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, even his cousin, who clearly despises him, came downstairs and was like mortified. He was like, oh my God.
He seems to be softening up a little bit. Like he seems to be like kind of showing a little bit more compassion towards his cousin, towards Jake. A little bit, you know what I mean? We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it seems like there's going to be something there. I don't know if it's he doesn't seem like he really has anybody. You know what I mean? Like his girlfriend clearly doesn't really care all that much about him. He even makes a line about it in the show where he's like, you know, would you catch me? And she's like, what do you think? And he goes, probably not. Even his parents, you know, they seem like those kind of stereotypical rich parents where it's like, okay, you got to be at your ballet practice, you got to do this, you got to make sure you take this amount of protein. Bye. And that seems to be the extent of his relationship with them. So I think him being forced to have some sort of interaction with his cousin might be his first genuine friendship by the end. We'll see. But I agree. It seems like there's going to be a nice little character arc there with that character. And I loved that shot, by the way, going back to something that has not aged well at all about the first film. That shot where he goes to get the mail and the camera pans to the side and it shows the Chucky doll going up the stairs. That was a really great shot. And some of those old school elements I love that they're bringing back to this show. Now, the kill of this show, this episode, I thought was pretty awesome. I had a bit of an issue with the first kill where you had the vodka vomit. I thought it was a little too slapsticky for my taste. But this one, as soon as she pulled out the rack and all the knives are pointing up, I was like, oh no, why would you do that? The way that he just shoved her and she just, like, it was almost like Halloween 2018 with the fence post.
That cheek. And then his reflection in the foreground blade, I was like, that is awesome. I mean, for a TV show, I mean, you would think budgetary reasons or whatever, you wouldn't be able to either just show it that well. I don't know, but that was remarkably well done.
Yeah, and it was really cool too, because I'm somebody that I'm starting to like see some of Don Mancini's influences in his direction. And one that I didn't pick up on because I'm not overly familiar with the guy's films is Brian De Palma, and that reflection in the knife, which you get twice in this episode. When you watched after the episode of the behind the scenes, he said that's a direct callback to old Brian De Palma films. And so it's really cool to see Mancini or any filmmaker making modern horror while at the same time homaging all of the classic horror. So yeah, I agree. Both of the nice shots, the one with Chucky and then the one that at the very end that kind of ends the episode where Jake sees Chucky's reflection and then it changes to his reflection, kind of giving you the idea like they're about to be very similar people here very soon. Similar to what CP was saying, like getting you visually what you need from the show and not just telling you is a very cool element there.
I mean, you know, it's visual storytelling, so you know you could take advantage of that and you know, set the mood. Did Don Mancini direct that episode? I have writers. I don't have directors.
He directed the first episode. Go ahead and talk for just a second and I'll look it up.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure he did. That's why they made it seem in a little behind the scenes thing. Or if nothing else, he told them, hey, make sure you do that because
he wrote them all though.
He's got writing credits all over the place for the entire series.
He did not direct it. He did not direct the second episode.
Okay. Ben, there's a question from Mohammed. What is your favorite Chucky movie and why?
Ooh, that's a toughie. I feel like it's a fan favorite, but part 2, mainly because it, you know, again, like any sequel, it sort of jumps right into it, and you don't have to set everything up and do the origin. Obviously, part 1's a classic, and I love Bride for what it is. I think that's a fun movie, but 2 feels to me like classic, quote unquote, Chucky, where it's just, I'm just going to run around and kill, but I still want to get out of this body type of thing, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you. See, 2 is my favorite as well. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that 2 is where they really realized what movie that they had and what Chucky was as a character. Where the first movie, it's about building the character. It's about building things up. And it's about, slowly revealing all the way up to the point where she sees the batteries and threatens to throw them in the fire. Where Chucky 2, from the get-go, Chucky's just having a blast, and he's having all the best one-liners, and he's having fun strangling the dude in the back of the car, and that third act is just awesome. And then
he's more of a character, if that makes any sense, in part 2, like a more weirdly enough saying this, fleshed out character, whereas in part 1 it was about a doll that comes back to life that's inhabited by a serial killer, and like you just said, it necessarily didn't, I mean, he had some one-liners, but it wasn't exactly like it. Part 2 just felt a little bit more oh yeah, you just said it. Like they knew what they had and they're gonna kind of exploit it in a way, or go forward with that idea. And I think if they try to make part 2 as scary, if you will, as part 1, I don't think it would have worked as well. I think it's almost like Freddy evolved into this, eventually a parody of himself, but there was definitely this like around part 3 and part 4 where it's like, oh, we know what we've got, we're gonna utilize this, and there's like a sweet spot there. And I think part 2 for like Child's Play 2 is a sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. I for a while there, Bride and Chucky 2 has been like battling out for my favorite, because I love that dark comedy element to Bride of Chucky, but Chucky 2 always ends up winning out. And we got one more. Says Don Mancini pulled a Hitchcock. Did you spot his cameo?
No.
Yes, he was the Uber driver. Whenever they were telling him that the Uber driver's here, you saw him for a split second. I was looking for it because he tweeted out. So anybody that was obscured, I'm like, is that you, Don? Where you at? And so that was
That's great. Cameo. I totally missed it.
Yeah, that was awesome stuff. So what are we getting as far as an idea of what's going on with the secret that his aunt has? Because they've referenced it now twice, which means they're definitely going to get into it at some point. I don't know if it has to do with Chucky. I don't know if she was having an affair with the dude that electrocuted himself. I don't know what's going on, but that's something that all throughout the first episode, or through the last half of the last episode, they referenced it again when she stopped and asked him. And then in this episode, both of the kids referenced it again to keep it fresh in our minds. Like, Ben, what is your prediction, or what's an idea that you think might be going on with this woman that is going to take place later on?
I mean, my initial thought was just an affair, which, again, like you said, I mean, they mentioned it in the first episode. I'm like, okay, they're probably, because, we see her go off and talk to someone on the phone, and then Chucky says, you have a secret. I'm thinking, and she does say, I need to see you. So that makes me think that there's an affair. However, it has to tie in. It can't just be some random person, whether it's an affair or not. Even if it is an affair, I feel like it's got to be somebody that either hasn't been introduced yet, but will find its way into the story, or was somebody that's already been introduced in some fashion. Although I don't suspect that in my mind. I just don't. But I don't know. I feel like it's an affair with somebody that is going to be a larger part of the show and a larger part of the storyline. That's just my guess.
Now, CP, if I'm correct, you mentioned this in the last episode, and Sky is repeating it here, and I'm really starting to subscribe to this idea. Sky says she's sleeping with Chucky in Nika's body. I bet.
If I had to bet money, I would bet on either Fiona Dourif or Jennifer Tilly, and she's. I mean, it's Don Mancini, so she could have a bisexual relationship, and
that's it. I'm like, well, here's the thing, and what I do like about where the series is going, at least as part of the series, is them talking about Jake being gay and bringing all of these other types of lifestyles. I think it's not just everyone has to be straight or whatever. I actually love the fact, that they're doing all of this. This is great, and again, my mind just goes, oh, she's probably talking to some guy. But when you just said that, I'm like, no, that's got to be it. And you're right. I bet it is. Oh, my God, that's amazing. Like, I bet that's probably Fiona Dourif or Tiffany, incredible. I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think that's amazing.
Now, I hope I'm right, because if I'm wrong, I've let half the people here down.
It's gonna be the milkman and be like,
well, they're going to be looped in somehow, right? And we already know they're part of the show, so they have to be. Oh my God, that's brilliant! I love it. I can't wait now. Now I'm more excited to see.
Yeah, and I'm pleasantly surprised too, on that note, at how they're restraining themselves with the OG characters. Like, they're not front loading the show where Andy and Kyle and Tiffany is there from Jump Street. Like, we got that phone call, they didn't show Andy even. So really, if you're not a Chucky fan, you don't know that that's Alex Vincent's voice. But he calls, do you have the dolls? Do you do anything weird? Yeah. And you're like, ooh, that's Andy. And then this episode, no mention whatsoever. So I don't really know. They previewed the first 4 episodes for critics. So I'm assuming after episode 4 is where things really start to get spoilery, if you knew the extra details. So I'm actually really pleasantly surprised at how much they're focusing on these new characters and really making us get into this world and this storyline without clouding it with nostalgia or aha moments or winks and nods or the characters that we all know and love. But yeah, when CP said that last episode, I was like, damn, that's so brilliant. He must be right. He better be right.
Brilliant. And yeah, I agree. I love the fact that you're spending time with these people and you're getting to know them and what's going on in this universe that we've really never been introduced to, in terms of these characters. I think it'll feel better once the OG characters come in. It's going to feel more impactful and more gratifying than if they just sort of kept doing, like you said, the wink, wink, nudge, nudges, or kept adding something in each episode. I mean, it's only 2 so far, but to really, like, just his voice in the first episode, like you said, us fans, we knew who it was, but it doesn't matter if you did or didn't, because it's still, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay that you didn't. It didn't have to be so forced, the restraint is good.
And Cody, you brought it up last week. They're kind of connecting it to cult. So Fiona Dorff and Jennifer Tilly, they're trying to sync up with all of the dolls anyway. So it would make sense that they're, whether or not they're genuinely in love with Lexi Doig, whatever, you know who I'm talking about.
Jason X. Just call her Jason X.
Jason X.
What's her character name in Jason X? I forget. She got a badass name. It's like River or something like that. With some.
That's the mother is from Jason X.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one that freezes with him. I noticed it last night. I'm like, why do I recognize her? And then I Googled it and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, so like it would make sense for them to try to connect to the dolls somehow, even if it's, there's not really.
Well, there's some kind of a plan going on. Like I said, they're planting the doll there to do something. And Sky nails it again, something that I didn't notice on first watch, but somebody enlightened me on. In the first episode, in the very first scene where he's at the yard sale, you could see Tiffany in the background in her red outfit or red jacket or something. So she stuck the doll on that table. I don't know if they wanted Jake to get it or if they just wanted somebody to take it or what, but they're doing a lot of cool little plants there that's going to be nice on second watches, which is also something that's pretty impressive.
I hope so. Like I said, I felt like the first episode was heavy. I felt like they gave us an awful lot, but if they're going to take it like this route, I'm okay with that. Like I'll gladly apologize for saying that I thought it was a little too much, but if they're going to give you pieces that makes it much more enjoyable to go back and be like, oh, this is part of this. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Now, something else that I've been really impressed with, and I've been like thankful that they nailed this time, is the design and the puppeting work of Chucky, as well as the lines that Brad Dourif is giving, and he still feels like he has all of the energy. Like you don't really feel like fatigue or anything like that in his performance. Like I thought Cult, the design of the doll, was a little bit off, but this just looks classic Chucky to me. And all of the lines that they've given him so far are just awesome. I love that whole scene where he was downstairs playing video games with the little girl, and he was almost like grooming her. He's like testing the waters. Like, I always thought murder was good for a family. You could kill the babysitter, you can kill the nanny, and you can kill your sister. And he's like, gay, like, what's your response? And the defenses that this innocent little girl gives and how it frustrates him. He's just like, mommy's working her way up my fucking list real quick. And like, that is just so classic Brad Dourif Chucky that I ate it up. So Ben, how do you feel about like the level of Chucky that we're getting here? Do you feel like Chucky himself is as strong as he's been since the 90s?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. The look is perfect in my mind. I think it went back to this classic Chucky look where the last 2 movies I felt like deviated from it, and I felt disconnected from that character a little bit. Whereas this, I felt so at home with that being Chucky. That I immediately just was like, no, that's Chucky. And then, like you said, it's interesting because he, we know Chucky to be the snarky self, but also to be really like, I'm gonna get you, you know what I mean? And I love that up till now, he's just been restrained Chucky. He'll still be like, your mom's working on my, fucking list and all this stuff, but he's not showing this like, enraged side yet. He's so calculated but still snarky, so he's sort of almost like more in control, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like very.
He he's plotting out what he wants to do, and he's willing to take his time to do it.
There's some sort of master plan, and we have no idea what it is.
Yeah,
which
as
is awesome.
opposed to like, you know, even when he killed the housekeeper, it was almost like a cat pushing something off a thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't done in rage. You wouldn't even know why he did it. He was just like, I was bored. Oh yeah, I know. She sprayed him in the face, but we didn't even hear him be like, you know, bitch sprayed me in the face. He was just boom, you're dead. And I'm like, that's just, and yeah, with Lexi's sister, it's sort of like, I don't know. I actually really love this Chucky almost more. And again, I know it's only 2 episodes in, but I almost love this Chucky more than I've loved any other iteration of Chucky in a way. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I almost want to have him in my house. So I don't know. It's almost this weird, endearing quality about him in this take version of it that I love. And the fact that you just said Brad Dourif shows no like you said, fatigue in his voice. It doesn't even sound like he's older, if you will. Like, I mean, you're talking what, 34 years, 33 years since the first movie. He's clearly much older, but he sounds perfect and his delivery is perfect. He is Chucky. Like, I can't get over it.
Yeah, and I loved it too, talking about his master plan and how he's more calm and calculated. I cracked up at the scene where he's trying to stab her through the bed and keeps missing. And it could have so easily have been slapsticky, but it was so funny how they're making out. He's just like, I got the fucking. He just goes up and then they turn over and just miss it, and then he goes to get her again and she sits up, and it was just, I was laughing along with the show, almost at Chucky's peril, not only because, and at this point we hadn't even seen her do the costume yet, so I'm not even really on the kill that bitch train just yet. Right. But just the hilarity of that scene, it was such a fine line between hilarity and slapstick that it was like that perfect mix for me. Every time that he missed, I'd smile and laugh.
And he could have gotten frustrated and just jumped out and went, die, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He did it because he couldn't get to her. But you're right. He just was restrained and just did his thing. And it was like, and then you're laughing at his not being able to kill her right there. And it's like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm. We do have another question for Ben. Love your shirts, Ben. Will you ever get Mortal Kombat?
Oh, I don't know. I got to look and see if that's going to be easy to get the license for. I mean, it all depends on licensing, how, what the availability is, what they're allowing us to do, how much they want. There's so many factors. I think if there's enough demand and we feel like it's something that we could, invest into, that we think is worth it, I'm up for it. I mean, look, it's a awesome game. I mean, I would do the game more than I would do the movies, clearly. I would want to focus on the actual game. I don't think I would focus on the movies per se. Because I'm sure they're 2 different licenses, but I don't know. It'd be fun one to work on.
Go ahead. Sorry, CP.
No, go ahead, Cody.
Just a quick going onto this path. I was very curious. Do you guys have in-house artists that draw up and do the graphic design for all of your designs, or is that something that you kind of sublet out to a different artist every time, or do people come to you with designs and then you get the licenses? I was curious because you guys always have like some of the more dynamic designs that I've seen where it looks like just so much TLC goes into it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. So we have to get the licenses first. I mean, that's just because licenses come with a lot of limitations. Some of them do, some of them, you can't use their faces, you can't use this, can't use that. So we start there. But in terms of artists, we work with a few people who are exclusive to us. Justin Osborne, who actually did the shirt that I'm wearing right now, does a lot of work for us. He's exclusive to us. Kyle Crawford is exclusive. They're freelance, but they're kind of exclusive to us. They're kind of on our roster of people that we continually use. Okay. And then there's other people we internally kind of look at the property, look what we want to do, especially properties that we've had for a few years that we want to see what else we can do. What other styles can we do? So we might see somebody like there's a guy, Jeffrey Blaseman, who does this great comic book looking style, like an old, almost Jack Kirby type style of work. We'll be like, ooh, let's do a comic book cover of Jaws, but use him, right? Or let's do this one. We just started working with Zach Brown, who does amazing, really high color work that he's doing a trick or treat for us that's coming out this Friday, 2 of them. Nice. He did one of the Halloween Kills ones, and I'm like, man, we could use him for this, and that, So there's people that we just kind of look around and again, it's usually of a list of people that we've already worked with, but sometimes we see an artist that we haven't worked with and like, oh, I want to work with that person. And we also have an in-house, he's like a jack of all trades, Joe. He's sort of our creative director slash, he does a lot of the website stuff and ads and emails and all those other things, but he will do some designs for us once in a while. Like if we're repurposing artwork we've used before that we want to do something different, he'll do that or come up with something original. So he does a little bit of that too. So yeah, we have a few artists that are kind of exclusive to us because it sort of brands our look a bit. And then we work with a lot of different people because I just love seeing what people can come up with, especially for these properties that we, are able to work with,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm curious about that. There's a guy that is a really good friend of mine that does a lot of my graphic design work. And I'm always blown away. Like every time he does it, I'm just like, dude, like, because I can't draw for shit. Like I have my talents. That's not one of them. And every single time I see a really great design that somebody just did from scratch, it always impresses me. So I was curious at what the process was for that. CP, what was your question going to be? I'm sorry for cutting you off earlier.
Now that it's happened, I actually have two. The first one is, have you ever had an IP that perhaps you weren't the biggest fan of that you had to work on, and did it affect the process at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit there's definitely IPs we've had in the past that, we get because we think and we've worked with a ton of properties up to this point, and currently we have, I think, over 70 licenses, right?
Wow.
And I can say that I'm a fan of each and every one of them to a degree, but there's degrees.
Oh yeah.
Right? One comes to mind just because it's kind of a funny story. Is we got a license. This was back several years ago. I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We got this license for, I think we got Human Centipede, and there was something else, which we were asking for. We were trying to get, you know what I mean? We had asked for them, but the company that we were licensing from wanted us to take this other IP called Pay the Ghost, which was a Nicolas Cage film coming out. I'm sure you guys have seen it. So that's the thing. Exactly. Nobody knows this movie. And I literally said, respectfully, this isn't something that fits with us. I don't want it. I mean, that's not something we were interested in. And we did the screener, and they said, no, we're just going to give you this property. Like, we're giving it to you. You don't have to pay anything for it.
Thanks.
And I was like, okay. So I'm like, I guess we got to do something for it. So Joe, who works with me, actually watched the movie and came up with some design that was based on some of the symbolic imagery in the film. And I'm not kidding you. We probably, just to satisfy the studio, I think we made like 50 of the shirts, and we probably sold 3, and then everything else went on discount. And then it was literally like we did it just to do it. Like it wasn't something we wanted. I declined respectfully, and I appreciated them wanting to do it, but the movie was going some direct to VOD or something like that. So it wasn't, clearly, again, you've never heard of it. I still have never even heard it talked about in any form. And it's Nicolas Cage, and it's the woman who was in Walking Dead. She played Rick Grimes' wife. I can't remember her name at the time. Anyway, nothing against the movie, nothing against the people in it. It's just, it wasn't on my radar, wasn't on anyone's radar, and it just wasn't worth doing, So that's definitely one. And it because everything else, I mean, we get because we want to get it. You know what I mean? To a degree, I might not be hugest fan of it, but I respect it and want to give it the love and care it deserves for the ultra fans of the film, even though it might not be my absolute favorite film. But Pay the Ghost was definitely one where I was like,
And the second question, thank you. The second question is, if you were to just go on your sales alone, what is the biggest franchise?
Oh, franchise
or IP, whatever. What sells? Yeah.
Halloween.
Really?
By a large margin, I would say. I mean, there's definitely other, properties. Jaws always as well, and I mean, Trick or Treat. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Night of the Living Dead does good for us. Evil Dead. There's the ones that you would traditionally think do well, pretty much do well. But I will say over time and consistently, franchise and individual film like Halloween, the original film, does amazing for us.
That's wild.
But as a still, and even with other companies still putting out stuff, which I'm sure they do well with it too. Just the title alone really just is great for us. And then as a franchise, it definitely Halloween. And I will say, more recently with Halloween Kills, that broke records for us. I mean, we did a pre-order back in September, and then we re-released it in October right before the film. But we needed to do the pre-order to gauge interest. That first day of the pre-order, of a 7-day open pre-order, the first day broke every single day record we've ever had as a company.
Those were awesome designs.
It was amazing. And then, it just continued through the week. And then upon the re-release, it's been, the response has been incredible. But I think I was really happy with the design where Kyle and Justin and Zach killed these things, and Yannick as well. And then they just were amazing artists. And then the pent up demand and energy and for this film, because it was pushed back a year and people were so anticipating this film, they just wanted it so bad. I think it was this culmination of everything. So that was awesome.
Did they give you something in advance, like to work off of, like even if it was just an image?
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So like for 2018, for Halloween 2018, we actually got a bunch of images of Myers and the script, which we were able to read. For Kills, it was a little bit of a frustrating process because, again, the movie was in the can a while ago, even though they did some reshoots. Mm-hmm. Because of the reshoots, a lot of the images they had approved. And the other thing is there's like 4 studios involved. Okay. Yeah. So it's a big deal to get anything. And because some of the reshoots, I think some of those images, then they didn't know which ones were technically approved, whatever. Oh. So part of the issue for me, at least, was like, listen, we know we can probably use some likenesses, but we also know that takes more time for approvals. Like, let's just focus on Myers for the first release. So just give us Michael Myers, like just give us images of him. Like, he's not going to change. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it was a long process. And finally, I think it was in June, maybe June or July. I can't remember. It might've been the end of June. It was the end of June. I think we got a whole folder full of images of him, high res of all sorts of images. Wow. And it was awesome because that was our first look at what he was going to look like in this film.
That's awesome.
And that was pretty cool to see. Especially, it was even cooler when we did the 2018 because no one knew what he was going to look like because we had gotten those assets back in like February of 2018. So no one knew anything. The poster hadn't been released. Nothing had been released. And I remember I got the email.
That's awesome.
And I called everybody in my office. I'm like, you want to see what Michael Myers is like?
$10, I'll let you look.
And it was just so rad. So we got a bunch of images from Kills. It was mostly just Michael, which is all we really wanted anyway at the time. So
that's awesome.
We're able to get some stuff early depending on the studio and the film and stuff.
Yeah, the Halloween designs that you guys have had just for even the reprints are awesome. Like, I despise Halloween 5, but I almost bought the shirt because I'm like, damn, that looks cool, but I don't know if I can do it. Like, so you got to make me a promise sometime between now and my death, when we finally get a new Freddy movie, you guys got to do a hell of a Freddy collection for me.
Here's the thing. We've been trying between Freddy and then Jason. Of course, anything owned currently by Warner Brothers has been very hard to get. And, we've talked to them, I've been to their offices. We've met at the licensing show every year. It's just been a process, and I really hope to someday. And I know with Freddy, especially Eva, of course with Jason, but with Freddy, there was a little bit of a litigation issue there. I think with the Craven estate. I don't know if that's been resolved. I don't know anything about it. I just remember that was a little bit of a speed bump a couple of years ago now. I don't know if that's been smoothed out or not, but I will tell you, I would love to sink my teeth into both franchises in addition to everything else that Warner Brothers has. So I'm hoping that's going to happen.
Good. Well, I hope for you. I don't have any contacts at WB, but if I get one, that's the only thing I'm asking for. Like, give the license to Ben, damn it.
We have the contacts. It's just they're just shooting us down. You know what I mean? They're just they have a, it's their limited bandwidth too, because they don't just deal with horror. Warner Brothers deals with Harry Potter
DC
and
yeah.
Lord of the Rings and all those other huge franchises. So it's not as much on their radar because they already have people making shirts and figures and other things for these franchises, and they're just like, well, what do we need another one for? And I get it. I'm just like, but I want it. Like it'll do really well.
It's still more money too. Like, you don't want more money?
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, I will give you money, and then I'll give you even more money. But the bandwidth for them is then it's more people having to look at approvals and look at making sure. Because again, these studios, they have to comb through everything. I mean, Universal is another one where we love Universal, and they're one of our best partners. But anything you submit generally has to come with paragraphs of notes, like, this is where this is from. If we use a line from the movie, this is where it's from. This is what they use. This is it. This blah blah blah. Because they don't want to risk getting sued. God forbid we said one thing wrong, and then that person sues Universal, and that's a big company, so they're gonna have to settle something.
Wow.
They need, and I'm not even kidding you. There's 10 lawyers that have to look at everything we submit just to make sure it's approved.
Wow.
So I understand. I can empathize with them to a degree to where I know I get it. It's just adding more to your plate. But selfishly, I'm just like, please, please,
Yeah, that's very cool, man. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I know that you were trying to stay tight to an hour, but again, I greatly appreciate you coming on. I've enjoyed the hell out of it. Not just getting the inside scoop on the process, because it's very fascinating to me, but it was just a very fun chat talking about this show. I'm glad that this show has been a fun conversation, not a bunch of us sitting around like, what are they doing? Why?
Me too, man. Yeah, I agree. It's nice to actually just be like, oh, that is just so much fun. Let's talk about it, as opposed to just being like, oh.
Yeah. So what did you hate about it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate it. What I want to end on, I'm going to go around the horn really quick, and I want you to tell me the one thing that you want to see by the end of this TV series. So I'll start with CP and give you a moment, because CP probably come up with it a little quicker.
Oh, Lexi's gotta die. She's gotta die.
Wow, you're heartless.
And I want to see it too. Like,
no redemption, no arc, just
no off-screen stuff. She's gotta die.
Awesome.
Okay. I don't know if I want to say this is what I want to see, but this is what I would be interested in seeing. Is at the end of the series, literally everybody that we know in that show has died, and Chucky just continues on. I think it would be, and again, I'm not saying I want to see that, but I think it would be an interesting thing where you take us on this journey through 10 episodes, and by the end, he's literally just gone through everybody for whatever degree. It maybe not like Tiffany or
OG characters.
Yeah, maybe not them, but maybe everybody, maybe not Jake even, but maybe everybody else just gets completely taken out, and it's almost like you've cleaned the slate and now you can start anew with something else. And maybe Jake becomes almost like an OG character moving into if a season 2 happens.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying I want to see that, but I would be intrigued if they decided to pull no punches and just go for it.
It'd be cool if they made Jake like a pseudo Dexter. Like, he'll kill, but he'll do it for the right reason.
Because I can see Jake adding into the Andy to the, the Tiffany to the, you know what I mean? I could see him being kind of tacked on to this group of characters in that world and continuing on. I don't necessarily want to see him die. I want to see him going. And again, I like the other characters in the show. I don't necessarily want to see them die. Maybe Lexi, but I don't necessarily want to see them die. But I also don't know if I want to see it wrapped up into a nice bow either,
Yeah. Well, they've said plans to make this more seasons. So I'm with you on the fact that it would be cool for each season to kind of be its own isolated story so that it doesn't get drawn out. Because how much can you really focus on one town? Like, they have that thing written in now where they have multiple Chuckies. So you can have this happen in Hackensack, New Jersey, and then we might see a Chucky that's off in LA somewhere in the next season. So we don't know, but I do like that that idea. The thing that I want to see, and this is for selfish reasons, just because when I was talking to Dave McRae about this TV series a couple of months ago, we were kind of talking through some ideas, and something got brought up that I can't get out of my head now about how cool it would be at some point, whether it's this season or later on in the show, eventually we're going to get another confrontation between Andy and Chucky. I really want to see something happen to where Andy dies and they have to put his soul into a doll to keep him alive. And now you have a good character and a doll as well. That might be too crazy, but then again, it's Chucky. Is there really a limit to how crazy we can get?
I really like it.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I like that idea a lot. I think you're onto something. That's a fun. Again, I think you're right. I think Don Mancini's done such a good job now blowing up the entire world where you can do anything and it makes sense. To be able to take, the first three and then Bride and Seed and be able to create a unified universe out of them with Cult and Curse, and then now into a series. It's like he has carte blanche. He can do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter, and it works. I mean, he's making it work in a believable way. I mean, believable. You know what I mean? It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, guys, we're gonna wrap up there. I hope you guys enjoyed this spoiler talk. Like I said, we're going to do this every single week. You're going to get my quick edited, first reaction review every Tuesday night after the episode. And then every Wednesday around this time, we'll have a spoiler chat. But CP, as always, it's awesome. I'm glad you showed up. I'm glad you're more positive on this episode. So we didn't have to have a repeat of last week.
Like I said, I'll eat my words. I thought it was stuffy, but it's starting to play out. So I'm happy to eat my words.
Absolutely. And then once again, Ben, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast. Anybody that wants to check out Fright Rags, please, the link is down below. If you're a t-shirt whore like I am, they're the place to go. So I thank everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.